Dumela, Saubona, Sakpase, Namaste, Abshin, Dubra Otra, Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, Bon Ani, Buenas noches, bonsoir. What's going on? Greetings, everyone. This is Doriel Inez Larrier of Larrier's Education and Resource Network, where I plant seeds to help you grow. Welcome to another chat session. This is season 2, episode, get this, 20. Episode 20. I'm so thrilled and pleased to come back to you with another great conversation. I hope you have your popcorn ready. I have my popcorn for this. I have my herbal popcorn. Did I say herbal? I did. I said herbal on purpose because tonight we're actually going to be discussing some herbs that have actually made headlines, some herbs that have been the talk of the town. And we're going to have that conversation with the person who's going to be on my show tonight, and that is Brother Ade Swinger. Let us get him to the session, and let's find out, what is the tea?
Okay.
Good evening, Brother Ade. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So I have to give a disclaimer to everyone who is watching. You have got to share this. You have got to get your tea. You got to get your mug, and you have definitely had to get your popcorn, because I'm going to be sitting here just like this. If you hear me crunching, it's because I have to calm my nerves, right? And maybe Brother Ade can help me calm my nerves. I don't know. But at least the conversation is going to be calming a lot of people's nerves. So people, please share this. It's really about the conversation about CBD, THC. I have to say that I was kind of tinkering on engaged in this conversation, but that's what my show is all about. It's to have inspirational leaders who inspire, inform, and instruct people to live their lives a little better. And the conversation about this herb has brought a lot of controversy over the past, not just weeks, months, years, but decades. But now the tea leaves are flipped. So let's have the conversation about that tonight. Brother Ade, tell me, what is the tea? What is all of this new thought about this old plant?
Well, it's interesting because this plant has been a part of our lives as humans for a number of millennia, probably. It's been found in tombs of some of our ancestors. It's been found across the globe. So it's something that's going to be prevalent in our lives, and either it's going to be on the illegal side or the legal side. And some may see it as being unfortunate, some may see it as being fortunate, but it's getting a lot of attention because it is a very, very powerful medicine. It is a powerful plant, and it has a lot of economic implications as well, which I think may be more of the driving force behind why it's getting the attention it's getting now.
Excellent. So first of all, those people who are here, I'm going to say this throughout the entire broadcast, and Brother Ade Swinger is with guap.global. Guap.global. Now, for some people, guap means one thing. For Ade and where we're going to move forward, guap means something else. So tell us about guap.global, and we'll follow you and then hear more about it.
So guap.global, guap is an acronym which stands for generating wealth on purpose. So it's a two, obviously a double entendre, right? So it's something that I think as an entrepreneur for the last 2 decades, I have realized that it's two of the main reasons why a lot of businesses fail. Some of the reasons why I, as a business, had businesses that have failed is primarily because of poor business planning, and secondarily because of improper funding, not having enough access to funding. So Guap is a company that I founded last year, which was designed to do just that, to help businesses access the funding that they need to grow their operation, expand, scale, but also help real estate investors, which a lot of our community is getting involved in nowadays. So we help real estate investors raise money for their operations as well.
Excellent. And so I must say that some of our family members, if you know what I mean, are actually in the building. So shout out to the family. And please share this out. We are on YouTube and we are on Facebook, my Facebook personal and my business page. So those people who are not on social media, you know who I'm talking about, please send them the link to the YouTube page where anybody can access this information and share it out. Also, I have to say, as always, my number one fan is my mom. Mom is in the house. Thank you so much, Mama, for showing up and being here today. So, guap also has another definition. And how is that connected to this work that you're doing? And then let's get into the topic.
So, as one of the businesses, one of the many businesses that I own, that I partner in and co-own, one of them is a CBD company, and one of the things that I wanted to do was to get involved in an industry that just made sense to get involved in. It's something that benefits a lot of people as far as medicinally, recreationally, it benefits people as well. And I live here in the state of Virginia, and Virginia is proposing to legalize cannabis going into 2024. So, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, I felt it would be a great business to get involved in. And GUAP is available to actually help fund businesses such as CBD businesses, farms, cannabis companies, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm in the industry, but also helping others to get in the industry as well.
Okay. Now, do those industries have to be in Virginia? Do they have to be,
No.
you have a farm, or like some of what I see popping up, let's say even in the urban center, and I'm in New York City, I want to say like in a garage, right? Or using hydroponics and using lamps and
It can get tricky. Of course, you should be in a legal state if you're looking to start a business in the cannabis industry. You should definitely be starting a business in a state that allows for you to have one. And it does not have to be a licensed operation. You can be in the cannabis industry from packaging to equipment supply. There's so many different ways you can get in the industry without actually having to do with the plant itself. So when it comes to if you were to raise money for a business like that, there's you could be nationwide to sell a packaging product to a cannabis company, right? If you're going to sell cannabis itself, you should be licensed, of course, in a state that's legal. But I actually encourage people to get involved in the industry for some of the other ways, mainly logistics. If you are into software, if you develop software, there's a great requirement. If you could think of any retail company that operates, needs software to manage their operations. It's the same thing when it comes to cannabis operations. Management of money with cannabis is finding a hard middle ground between making a lot of money but being unbankable. The laws right now, federal laws, are preventing a lot of cannabis companies from actually storing their money in banks and raising money from actual commercial banks. So if you're a company that helps them secure that money, transport that money securely, um, there's all different ways that you can get involved in the cannabis industry if you were interested in getting involved in the industry to make money.
so I hope that you have, as part of your website, which please people follow guap.global, and that's on Instagram. And of course, if you just type it into your browser, guap.global, that you have probably a list of states that are legal, or states where it's not necessarily legal yet, but maybe they are planning to become legal in order to grow, cultivate, distribute the cannabis plant. Yes?
Well, as far as Guap is concerned, Guap, I serve more than just the cannabis industry as far as who we help to fund. So it's not specifically regarding cannabis. However, if you do have a cannabis business or you have questions, the contact information, everything is up there. But Guap is mainly just focused just for you to come in and seek how you can get funding. And if you are not in a position to get funded, we can actually help you get to a position where you can get funded, regardless of what business you're in. It doesn't have to be cannabis.
Okay, so this is the moment that I'm taking out some popcorn, because it's about to get tricky, right? Now, wasn't very long ago, maybe 3 years, let's say before Rona, that the focus on someone walking down the street, handing somebody something, was all on the QT. Behind closed doors, through a car window. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And now it's in a it's in a food truck. It's on every fourth or fifth corner, depending on where you live. It is a part of the let's say typical smoke shops, which have now expanded. How in the world so quickly did it become accessible through some hands, and other people are still standing, let's just say, on the block like this? Wait, weren't you just hounding me about that? And now somebody across the street has a huge sign saying "Get it here." How did that switch so quickly?
That's a political game that's being played. The easy answer is it switched because the localities that actually find a way to legalize it and keep some sort of control over it make money as a result of them doing so. When it comes to what they do is they slowly creep it onto you. So they start out with a word that's called decriminalization. So they say that we're going to decriminalize it, which means that we're going to put a stipulation on you as a citizen that says that you can carry a certain amount of it on you in public, and you treat it in a certain way. And most counties or states treated it the way you would treat alcohol. Can't be consumed in the public, that kind of thing. And then from decriminalization, it went on to formulating framework to how they can legalize it and how it can be distributed through dispensaries, et cetera. And they just follow the lead of other states that have done so. And obviously, the main ones have been on the West Coast, in Colorado, and you think about, of course, California, Oregon, Washington. So these states have had a long history of having legalized cannabis, and they have a track record now of being successful doing so. And when it moved over to the East Coast, it moved over into Massachusetts, it moved into Florida. It still has a pretty robust medical program, but not a recreational program. And then New York, New Jersey followed through. DC decriminalized. DC has a model which kind of stands for the East Coast model, so to speak, that some states kind of gauge whether or not that would be a model that they will follow along. So they really followed the money through all these decades of success, I would guess, from the West Coast. And it's moved through the Midwest and on to the East Coast now. So all across the Eastern Shore, Eastern Board, we'll see all of these states actually becoming legal, and they're trying to follow a framework of a successful state. So as we get more states on board and are finding success with it, the more states to follow.
So I have to pause for a moment and say I want to shout out. I'm not going to name people, but I want to shout out some of my college mates who are actually from the West Coast. And I do hope that as they are listening, if they're able to pop in or drop a question or a comment or provide some eyes from the other side of the shores of what the decriminalization of the use of cannabis is, THC, CBD, and what it looks like on the other side. Now, those of you who are on this side, right, of the time zones, if you want to drop a question or a comment or raise an issue, please do so in the chat, and I'll be able to see it and then bring it up to the stage where we can actually address it. And those people who are even on the replay, please, you can drop the comments and questions in as well. And Ade, I call him Brother Ade. Brother Ade would be able, and or I would be able to at least listen. I know very little. Let me just say this: I know very little, which is why I have Brother Ade here. But so he is like my resident expert right now, and I'm definitely going to turn over most of this conversation to him. So we're going to go back. We're going to go way, 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 way back. Now, you said that excuse me, that there is evidence of this plant, the five, is it five fronds? Is it five fronds?
It's actually, it could be anywhere from 7 to 10, but yeah, it's usually an odd number for some reason because
Okay.
of that one that sticks up in the middle. It's like your hand. Yeah, it's like it starts off at 5, minimum 5, all the way up to 10.
Okay.
Some cases 11. Yeah.
So you said that the images of this have been on as part of glyphs. Those people who know what I'm talking about in Kemet, ancient Egypt. And so it has been a part of our botanical life since the beginning of time. Of course, how it was used back then, I don't know. I wasn't there. But it has definitely stood its test of time. So let me know, because again, I'm literally going to be sitting here eating this popcorn. Let us know how that what you know about the big questions that people ask. What's the difference? Is hemp the same thing as the THC? How much is too much? How much is enough to, let's say, address an issue? And then what is the amount that has the mind altering psychotropic effects? Did I say that right? Did I say that right?
Yep, pretty
I
much.
was
Yeah.
I was practicing. Okay, I'm ready.
So the plant. This what's so interesting about the plant is that it has. They have. There are different, so to speak. I wouldn't say species because it is one species, but there are different ways that it expresses themselves. And what most people, when they think about cannabis, what they're thinking about is the flower, which is the actual end result of the plant's life. But the plant itself has been well known to be used for its fibers. The actual structure of the stalk is very fibrous, and it can lead to very strong fibers. So in textiles, etc. The seed has been used to feed humans as well as to feed animals, and the flower has been used to take people to places and to be used medicinally. And because of the flexibility of the plant, it can be bred to have more of a certain chemical in that flower or less of a certain chemical in that flower. Um, and that's more of a recent phenomenon that we're finding is that people are really cultivating cannabis in a way where they're manipulating the properties to benefit to give strength to a certain chemical that they want to express themselves. Mainly, it's THC is what people are looking for when they look at the cannabis flower.
Okay, so those of you who have not watched my shows before, I need note takers. I need my stream team to show up. So my stream team, whoever can type and listen to this at the same time, if there is a question that comes up, if there's a statement that he's made, if there's a term or a definition that he's provided information about, drop it in the chat. If you can do it on the Learn to Grow You or the YouTube side, then I could actually bring it up to the stage. So I'm actually going to try to pause myself every once in a while to try to take some notes. So I actually just wanted to repeat one thing. So you said the seed can provide feed, the stalks can provide fiber, and then you said the flower what?
The flower provides the medicinal component of the THC, CBD, and 100 other cannabinoids. But also, what the plant does, the roots themselves. So it's funny that you mentioned that. Those are three things. But the fourth thing would be that the roots actually help to remediate soil. It's one of the things that about this plant, where, for instance, if you were to grow cotton or tobacco on your land, it'll pretty much ruin your land after certain seasons, certain amount of seasons. And it is known that if you introduce hemp, it helps to remediate the soil by actually reintroducing some of those main elements, such as phosphorus and nitrogen, some of those things. It helps to regenerate the soil. So it is used across the Midwest in some places to grow hemp, so that it can remediate the soil after growing soy and potato, which actually takes a lot out of the soil. So the roots actually have a benefit to it.
Okay. Hold on. Let me just repeat this. It, okay, so you have, let's say, cotton, maybe you have peanuts, maybe you have wheat in the soil. Crop rotation, right?
Hmm.
You deal with that. Maybe you burn the crops and then to kind of refortify. I'm trying to learn my biology here. Refortify the soil. So they'll actually plant hemp
Hmm.
into the soil to give nutrients to the soil, right?
To help replenish and regenerate. It's not as damaging to the soil as some of the other crops are. Yeah.
So if I'm putting two and two together, we're consuming it without directly consuming it because whatever goes into the soil stays in the soil. Am I right?
Yeah, so to speak, but not the chemical that we would be any cannabinoids. No, I mean we're consuming it in this form of it's what is reintroducing to the soil is the basic elements, basic phosphorus, nitrogen. It helps to remove some of the ammonia out of the soil, which is something that has excess nitrogen in the soil. So not to get too technical in the botany of it, but
But
that
that's
plant is just an
important.
amazing plant that does so many things for the environment. It consumes a lot of carbon dioxide. It loves it. So it's one of the things that can help cleanse the air and filter the air. Those leaves, the way those leaves are formed, it helps to pass a lot of air through, so they consume a lot of air, carbon dioxide, particularly that way. The plant's an amazing plant as far as what it can do for the land, for animals, and for humans. And yes, we are connected to it because the cannabinoids that are present in the plant, actually we have receptors for. So our body naturally produces cannabinoids as well, which is just a carbon based molecule. And us being carbon beings, we have receptors for that. So that's why we're so emotionally, physically, and spiritually attached to this plant, so to speak, because it has a long lineage of actually us evolving with it. And our biology is formed to accept it uh, purely.
So you did just say that our bodies actually produce a cannabinoid.
Yes, our bodies naturally produce cannabinoids. Yes, they are a naturally occurring chemical that actually help to reduce inflammation in the body. So it's a stress relief chemical. And our bodies naturally produce it to help us relieve ourselves of stress. They are all over the body. The receptors are not just in the brain; they're all over our bodies. So when an individual smokes cannabis, it mostly goes to the brain because of the oxygen that's being drawn with it. So they're experiencing the receptors there. However, if someone was to consume it internally, and CBD as well, you have receptors all throughout your body, which helps to relax your body and do all the things that what the studies have shown CBD and some of the other cannabinoids can do. And it's not a issue of getting high; it's an issue of your body actually feeling more relaxed. It's actually putting your body in a position that it can actually start to heal itself. So some may say that CBD is a medicine. I like to say that because it naturally occurs in our body, it is a pathway to allow our bodies to heal themselves. It is just another chemical that we can use, a naturally occurring chemical that we can use to allow our bodies to heal itself. Our body is the medicine. It has the medicine it needs. We don't really have to do too much, but give it the time and the rest to do so.
Okay. So before this conversation, I was still on the pathway to not doing that. No, because the only thing I know, the only thing I see, the only thing that is produced and is marketed is somebody putting some little green stuff in the little red in the little white paper and doing some inhalations and then going to like snack on all the chips in the house, right? Or passing out or so. And to an extent, especially because my mother's watching, right? I'm still like that. But I am now going to bring up some conversations that we've had prior and some people that have called me and said, Doriel, hey, do you know about anyone who has more information on this plan that can make it, I want to say, accessible in terms of understanding? And that person called me, and what did I do? I called you because I know nothing. And so, which is why I'm having this conversation. Now, there are a number of people who are cultivating it, and distributing it in a number of forms. When I see it for people, that's one thing. I started seeing it for dogs. Totally different conversation, but I guess kind of the same conversation because you said it addresses stress. So can you sort of just address like the variety of ways that people are distributing it? And there are some ways that I've seen on the streets and on the highways and byways, but let me know some of the ways that you've seen people. And again, folks, if you see this, if you've seen this live or on the replay, type it in the chat. I'll be able to see it and pull it up and add it to the conversation.
So as far as distribution also means how people are consuming it. It's obviously mainly the flower. However, because it is a chemical that is existing on the flower, it can be extracted off of the flower. So it comes in extractions in mainly a form of oils, some sort of oil. because the chemical itself is a oil based chemical. It only dissolves in another oil fat base. So it's put in foods, candies, things that you can manipulate using oil as an ingredient. So as far as like, so that's like, you can eat it, you can drink it, you can smoke it. Um, Smoking is obviously the most popular way of consuming the flower, because the actual act of fire lighting to the flower, it excites the chemical and actually activates it. Heat is what activates the chemical in your body. So if you were to just take a piece of the plant and eat it just in its raw form, it wouldn't have any effect on you because it hasn't been activated. So because fire was introduced to it, that's how it was activated. So that's how most people consume it. However, you can apply heat to it, extract it. Applying the heat will activate it, and you can put it into a food. You can put it into a tea, and you can kind of consume it in a way that is, I would say, more manageable for a lot of people, because smoking again carries such a taboo that you mentioned earlier, that people just think of you as a pothead at that point. You smell like it, you look like you smoke, you're giggly, you probably smoke too much, so now you've reached beyond the medicinal benefits. Now you're into the euphoric benefits. So there's ways that you should consume it depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, I would say.
So I definitely want to thank our guests who are adding to my little commentary here. So when I mute myself, it's because I don't want you all to hear me typing. But so I said extracted into oils. I just repeated what you said in oil-based forms. People put it into food, candies, etc., and they're eating, drinking, and I said inhaling it. And then also thank you to Sister Nazalma, who said also use in oil form topically
Yes,
for pain. So
absolutely, absolutely.
that's very interesting. So if you just said that you need heat to be applied to it for it to be activated,
Yes.
how is heat acted to an oil, or let's say the salve, because that's the way that I've seen it
So
used?
before it gets into the solve, it's already been what they call decarboxylized, which is applying heat to it at a certain amount for a certain amount of time at a certain amount of heat. That actually either removes the acid from the molecule, so it goes from to THCA to THC, which becomes what our bodies can accept, and that becomes the activated molecule. And that could be the other way around too. It could be either it becomes from THC to THCA or from THC to THC. Excuse me, THCA to THC. But either way, heat does do something to it molecularly that allows it to be actually felt by us, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So that has been done to it before it gets into the oil, before it gets into the salve, before it gets into the gummy. But that's what's instantaneously happening when you light fire to it and you smoke it.
Okay. So can I just say that at the time that I took biology in high school, I wasn't ready for all of this. I just wasn't.
It really is biology. When you look up the THC molecule, and they it's drawn, and people wear necklaces with this molecular build structure. It's chemistry, but the key word is chem.
It,
If you know what I mean.
of course, I know what you mean. Those of you who know what we mean when we say chem, y'all put it in the chat and write it the way that we know it's supposed to be written. I'll leave that for y'all to figure out yourself. But so I thank you so much just for this part of the conversation. So of course we've seen a lot of marketing in ways that, yes, decriminalizes it, but also tries to make it socially normative. Ooh, I don't know if that's an actual phrase that's out there, but I just said it. So, but you know what I mean. So there are a number of movies and TV shows and sitcoms, etc., that again are normalizing the use connected to the decriminalization to make it more feasible and accessible and as a part of daily life for the community.
Uh-huh.
There are still folks who are standing on the sidelines like, then what you gonna do to so and so that is serving years because they were carrying, the amount that would fit into a gum wrapper. But then there are people who are, again, growing it, extracting it, distributing it, and they're not even touched. So I think that media, and you know this as well as I do, and y'all know this as well as I do, plays the favorite of what they think is appropriate for a group of people, for a community. And I'm thankful to be at ease with my own self to engage in this conversation because, again, the underrepresented, the marginalized are inadequately what's handled, let's say, when this topic comes up. So I'm trying to add to, let's make this conversation normal and put it on the table to allay fears of people. Again, not to say that I'm using it, but just so that we're not like, oh my gosh, if you belong to this group of people, you shouldn't be talking about it. If you belong to this group of people, you shouldn't be talking about it. Or if you belong to this group of people and you're talking about it, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. But realistically, if you can now go to your physician, especially if you have a physical ailment, that this particular flower, plant, leaf has some benefits to it, let's not point a finger and shake it at people, but let's allow people to do what they do and to also to be responsible for their actions. So when a physician can say, listen, this CBD, and as you said, heat added to the part of the flower, heat added to the oil in the flower. Now I know that. I did not know that before tonight. Can have some inflammation reducing, right? Benefits. Okay. People who have glaucoma, it historically has had some benefits to them. So inflammation, glaucoma. I'm sure there are a myriad of other physical ailments that it would be helpful to. So I just, again, wanted to be part of the conversation to cross that fine line, keeping it, I'll say, keeping it tactful, because this is all ears can hear this, and trying to move the needle from it's just one group of people, and let's just say in a part of the world that usually gets highlighted, if you know what I mean, like folks down in the South on another island south. And that image is always just brought up, but it's not also brought up in the same light, in the same format as it is when it's a part of, multi-million-dollar movies and such. So I think that's part of what I wanted to share with folks. And if there are any questions that are coming from people on, oh, wonderful. So I have some folks actually from way, way back. So those people who are just popping into the broadcast, again, this is Ade Swinger from gwop.global, GWOP.global. And we're discussing, as I coined it, cultivating and distributing this plant that has, hey, great, that has had a lot of criminalizing manifestations for the inappropriate use within marginalized communities. But now, within a year, 2 years, depending on what state you're in, now people are literally making hand over fist from flipping the leaf. Right? So let's probably pop into like the last part of the conversation, which is how are people, like, what do people go through or have to go through if they're actually trying to set up their own, let's just say their own tea shop?
So yeah, if you want to become an entrepreneur in this space where you're actually handling the flower or you're making a safe space to use it, that can become a little tricky because one of the things that they've done to kind of draw the line between who's legal and who's illegal is their licensing programs. All right, they use licensing programs to pretty much corner people out of the market by making it either inaccessible because of cost, inaccessible because of access to attorneys to help you actually fill out the paperwork, It is an extensive process. In some cases, some states have made it so. And what we found is that if you want to be directly related to the flower, whether it's growing it, uh, processing it, or distributing it through a dispensary, you're going to need a license for one of those three areas. If you are not interested in doing any of those three, then you don't need a license. The only license you probably need is just a retail license for your particular state or your city or your county, but you have to make sure that you can actually engage in a legal way. So if you say like a tea shop, for instance, if you want to open up a tea shop where people can consume the product, may not necessarily be where you sell it, but people can consume it. You just have to make sure that there aren't any local ordinances that get in the way of you having a place where people consume, because they want to treat it like they do alcohol. So they're going to want to create a commission, so to speak, that will give you rights and access to where you can have that kind of business. So it can really become tricky, and I'm not right now in a position to kind of go through some of the legal matters around it. But the first thing I would recommend anybody trying to get involved is just educate yourself, because there's been a lot of propaganda that has been produced to get people away from the plant, as you mentioned earlier. But one of the things that I do recognize, especially speaking to our community, for instance, when they talk about some of the history of hemp in our country, Benjamin Franklin, they say, grew hemp. But we know Benjamin Franklin didn't grow anything. Benjamin Franklin didn't put his hand in the dirt. We know who grew that hemp for him. And the people who grew that hemp for him were specialized individuals, specialized agriculturalists who knew what they were doing because they had a history of doing it. So we may want to find ourselves, if you find yourself with a green thumb, you may want to find yourself just learning a little bit more about the plant. In certain cities and states, they're allowing you to grow it at home. So you can start out just familiarizing yourself with maybe growing it at home if you want to come and get on that side of things. Because who knows, you might find a company who wants to partner with the master grower, and because of your lineage, you might have the hands to do so. So there's so many different ways to get involved. But educate yourself about the plant, some of the properties, but most importantly, educate yourself about the laws in your state. And because of the way things are going with the Supreme Court, as we see, a lot of things are moving down to the states having ultimate control over what happens within those state lines. So cannabis is always going to be a state-specific issue, as far as I see it, and you want to make sure that you're familiar with your state is allowing and not allowing. And in most cases, if you want to have your hands on the flower, you're going to need a license.
So, for those people who know somebody, or know somebody that knows somebody, or know somebody that knows somebody that was talking about how a couple of years ago somebody was sent somewhere, but now people across the street or open up 2 and 3 shops, or open up the little food truck that's driving down the block. Because when I saw the food truck, if anybody knows what I'm talking about, when I saw the food truck, and I'm here in New York, I saw the food truck, I literally had to take a triple take. And this was I believe I saw it in Manhattan, around Midtown. I did. I saw it one in Manhattan around Midtown. And if you all know where you saw one, you can type that in the chat as well. Or you can DM me, because I know I saw one. And then I saw not a commercial, but I saw a news report about this food truck. So, and all I could do was stand and sort of gawk, like, am I really looking at this? And then, of course, you know what I did? I looked inside and I said, who's driving? Y'all take a guess at who's driving. Some of you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, when I see this ability to distribute in this way, of course, I think about, as a person who is a parent and a person who works with, let's just, impressionable minds. Let me leave it at that. I think about who is now getting the access. How available is it to those who may not necessarily be prepared to handle or deal with its after effects or with its manifestations? So that's definitely a concern of mine, and it's a concern, of course, I know of some others who are still like, if it's not given by a physician or a medical person or someone who's into, let's say, holistic practices or the healing and wellness world, let's put it like that,
Mm-hmm.
that it could get into those things that are consumed. Let me use nice words, where somebody's thinking it's one thing and it's not. And I'm talking about the brownie and the gummy situation. So
Yeah,
one person, ooh, that's some brownies. Oh no, sweetheart, those aren't brownies for you.
yeah,
Not.
yeah,
Or mixing it up with the gummies that you take because for your daily vitamin. That's not the kind of vitamin we're talking about. So I'm really just concerned about the access. So what do you have to say about how accessible it is, and maybe how communities, families, institutions can, again, like you said, further educate people about, before it was in one form, now it's in 20 different forms.
it's unfortunate that you're right there as far as like packaging goes. Gummies, of course, they package in fruity colors and flavors and all this stuff. So it is appealing to children and people who shouldn't have access to it. As a parent, you're responsible for making sure that it's out of the hands if it's in your household. As far as how they market it, they marketed cigarettes the same way, they market alcohol the same way. It's something that there's really a fine line. It's in some cases, some people will say, well, it's non-toxic. So even if your child or your animal were to consume it, they'll sleep it off and they'll be okay. But in some cases, that's not necessarily the truth. CBD has the effect of reducing the effects of THC. THC, if in high concentrations, does cause anxiety, does cause high heart rate. It does cause things that are adverse, things that you don't want to have happen to you. And because many of these products are formulated without the added chemicals that naturally occur in the plant, it is possible to actually overdose on THC, and that overdose in the sense that you get these side effects, right? And most companies are not formulating and adding CBD to help reduce the effects of that THC. So some states, what they're doing is they're going into the laws and stating that if you were to sell a product, it cannot come in the form of a colorful package. It has to almost look like medication would look, right? So they're trying to create some sort of standard for how things are packaged, how they're presented, how they're marketed to the public, which also can lead into another business venture for an individual who may be interested in developing packaging that is more adult-like than childlike, more along the lines of medicine than it is along the lines of candy, right? So there are ways that we can get involved and say, well, if we want to see a change happen, if we want to make this something that can be consumed by responsible adults, should not be in the hands of children, then developing packaging, developing marketing strategies, developing software to host these websites to sell these products on is a way that we can help to do that. Otherwise, we're going to leave it in the hands of the politicians who are going to tell us how to do it, or actually going to tell us what to do, and we have to then figure out how to do what they want us to do. So right now, the politicians are trying to figure out a way to make it less accessible, I guess, the same way they did with tobacco and alcohol.
So I guess one last statement or comment, and thank you to the people who are watching on multiple platforms. Again, we're talking to Ade Swinger of guap.global, GWOP.global, on the internet streets as well as on Instagram. And I do thoroughly suggest that you follow him just for information. Of course, he's available to provide legal information as much as he is legally able to provide it, if you know what I mean. But just to even answer questions, because again, I my awareness of it is only from what was marketed and criminalized. That's all I got. Now I'm seeing it on shelves in like rubs and gummies and the brownies and the teas, and I'm just like, wait. So as I'm watching the packaging part, which again is what brightens someone's eyes, right? It has to be visually appealing for it to sort of stimulate, literally and figuratively, a reaction in the brain that says, "Ooh, yes, I need that. Oh, yes, I want that. Oh, yes, it's going to help me.
Mhm.
So now we have like the pinks and the oranges and the yellows and the greens that are the same color as what I remember the little children's vitamins that I used to take growing up.
Mhm.
Now that are these gummy things that I took growing up. So for again, for children or not even children, but for adults who still have, to an extent, a childlike set of lenses,
Mhm.
they see that, they think, ooh, happy thoughts, right? Work with me here, right? Ooh, peace of mind. Ooh, carousels and unicorns and cotton candy. That's what I need to feel. That's what I'm gonna go for. But that marketing, so yeah, whoever is in marketing about this, to an extent, you're doing a good job because you're tapping in to that part of the human that is wanting to feel less stress. And when did we feel less stress? For most people, we felt it when we were children. You can't tell me that the color theory is not in a part of this. So I'm just thinking, as I'm sure there will be, let's say, policies from governmental officials who'll say, okay, or the FDA, let's say, however they're involved in that, I don't know, they say, well, then the packaging needs to look like this. I am sure there's going to be a lot of pushback because when you make it look more medicinal and not recreational,
Mhm. Mhm.
just like with another issue that we have where certain things are being, connected to the street and most people shouldn't get their hands on them. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There's
Mhm.
going to be pushback. So, and unfortunately, what the thing that's going to probably push the needle back to the pendulum back to the other side of making it more medicinal rather than recreational is the number of people that are adversely affected by it.
Mhm.
And what are we talking about? We're talking about children or young adults or those who are taking it too far, overdosing or getting, what's the word, bad strains or somebody tainting it, right? I know little, but I listen and I pay attention to who's getting access, how is it being promoted to young adults and in young adults in media. And there's so many movies right now, there's so many shows right now where teens and young adults, even in the, let's say, the party scene, and I'm not talking about people at 25 and up where, quote unquote, they, let's just say, they should know better, they should be accountable of their actions, but I'm talking about the teen scene, right? The teen scene, 13, 14, 15 through 18 and 20, where they're partying, or they say they're partying, but they're getting a hold of this stuff. And then somebody, it's not a 14 and 15-year-old who's lacing it.
Mhm.
It's, it's not. It's some adult that is doing something to it, passing it off to these young people, saying you're going to get this additional thing. And they're going for it because they're looking for that, whatever that it is.
Mhm.
That's what I'm concerned about. And that's unfortunately what has happened in the past. You get so many people, and of course, not the people in certain communities, right? It's the people in other communities who have financial access and political power. When it hits their young people
Mhm.
en masse,
Mhm.
that's when politicians will step in. And if I'm not telling the truth right now, then somebody can jump in right now, and you can say, Dario, you're wrong.
Yeah, it's the political landscape right now behind it is very touchy when it comes to cannabis. It's split down the line from you need a license to sell THC, but you don't need a license to sell CBD. CBD is seen as the less potent cousin of THC, and there are about 100 cannabinoids that exist in the plant, and THC is the one that actually gets people that feeling of euphoria and what we call being high. But because it's all in one plant, it's very hard to separate one from the other unless it's done in a way that is in of a systemized, controlled environment. And the country that we live in, the only control that you could really have is they tend to want to legalize the control, right? You have to uh, codify it into some sort of law to make people play fair. And there's always going to, in my opinion, there's always going to be a black market because that's where cannabis has always thrived because of the government never allowing it to really be accessible to the public because of the fears behind some of the things that we're talking about, the access to children and some things like that. But I guess if you look at history and you look at how things have gone, children have never really been the people who suffered the most from cannabis use in any way, right? There hasn't been many studies of children ending up in the hospitals behind consuming one of their parents' gummies, because the truth is they're probably just going to have a really good night's sleep, and parents are responsible for doing the same thing they would do with the alcohol in the house, right? Keep it in a way that children can't access it, or if they drink it, like what most people do when kids drink alcohol that they shouldn't have gotten to. You shouldn't have done that. Now you're gonna feel terrible in the morning, and you're gonna remember this, and it's probably gonna keep you away from it, right? Like there's so many different ways that kids can have access to things that we can have no control over. But I think having education behind some of these things is important. So as the media does get out there, as we have these conversations, as people get more educated about what's going on, then we probably have more dialogue around how we can keep it safe and how we can, because lacing it and all that other stuff, that's as a result of people wanting to make money, and that typically happens on the black market side of things, right? People who are legitimately making money inside of a dispensary may not want to do that, because if one person goes down, then your whole business is going to go down, because that one person, they probably going to find out that they got it from you. All right. So in a more controlled environment becomes less, I guess you could trust that person more. But it's all cannabis for the purpose of THC has been very strong on the black market. The black market is a terrible word for it. Has been very strong on the other side of the legal streamline market. It'll remain so, and our kids accessing it that way, if they are, they always have been. Um, and it's something that if we can educate and be a little more responsible with the education behind things, I think that can help. But as adults who are out there marketing it, as adults who are out there selling it, then of course we have a responsibility to make sure that we're not selling it to people who should not have access to buying it. And currently in most states it's 21 or over. You all should have access to it the same way they do alcohol, and they treat it like cigarettes and all that stuff, you know. So it's going to be a legal framework behind it that's going to help us kind of navigate how to market it, how to sell it. So one of the things I want to go back and remind people is, if I mentioned, if you want to get in the business to get a license, that's on the THC side. If you want to get on the CBD side, you don't need a license to sell CBD. However, to sell any retail product, you need a business license to sell a retail product in most cities or counties across the country, right? And currently in most of them, CBD is legal to sell as a product in your retail location.
This is definitely much more information than I had at the onset of this conversation. I did want to bring this conversation to this show because, as I say always, I want for my community to be more informed. I want you to be influenced to live your life better than you did yesterday. I want the people who I know and interact with to bring forth information that they have in their back pocket, written on their forehead, written in their palm, broadcasted across their chest, that some people can be in little pockets, and the pockets that they're in, the information that they can provide to the community at large is very, very important. And that's the purpose of this show. So I want to say thank you so much, Brother Ade, for the information that you shared. Thank you for sharing your contact information. If anybody who's interested in getting more, more, not necessarily direction, but just information in general, please contact him at guap.global on Instagram and on the World Wide Web, on these internet streets. And I'm sure that he'd be glad to provide you with some more information. Thank you for the biology lesson.
I know,
So,
right?
listen, no, Mr. Miller, my chemistry teacher, I don't think he had this information like that. But I thank you for breaking it down literally and figuratively in a way that I can understand. And I'm sure the people who are listening can understand and share with those who are listening. And of course, if you want to share this information, please do so. My stream team, thank you so very much for hopping in and typing up some of the codified terminology that Brother Ade has shared with us. And I look forward to you connecting and getting more informed to make the best decision for yourself, your family, and your community legally. Legally. So, any lasting words, Brother Ade, on the topic of CBD, THC, how leaves are now being read? Did y'all catch that? Leaves are being read differently these days than they were just 2 or 3 years ago. What say you?
I would just say if you are interested in health benefits, you would look at CBD as you would any other compound or element out there that you would find on the shelves at Vitamin Shop or GNC or your local herb shop. I recommend CBD as a part of anyone's regimen. If you work out, it's a good thing to have. If you have medical problems, asthma, all kind of things, it helps with inflammation. So, of course, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't give you any medical advice, but based on the experience of myself and some of our customers and other people who have put their information out as far as their experience goes, CBD is an added benefit to anyone trying to live a natural, healthy lifestyle. So you don't have to consume it in the form of a gummy. You can just consume it in its raw form. In most cases, just what they call a tincture. That's the easiest way to consume it, and you'll get most of the benefits out of it. So, if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. But you could always do your research, Google and YouTube, or your friend, and be careful what you see out there. If you're suspicious about anything, you probably have good reason to be. So, try to find some of those trusted places that you can go to get some of that information.
I love the fact that you ended with a tincture because we actually didn't really focus on that. So the tincture is the extraction of the liquid concentrated element, right? Then so a tincture is just like a little drop on your tongue. An oil, which can, as Sister Nazalma said, it can be used on your skin as like a salve, right? And then there are, whether it be pills or capsules, and then there are, thank you so much, people with the comments now. Then there are teas, and then there are the gummies, or then there's added to foods. And again, I saw dogs got little cannabis. I was flabbergasted, just flabbergasted. Dogs get to have.
They have an endocannabinoid system the same way we do. Their natural ancestors walked around and ate cannabis plants and got cannabinoids in their vegetation that they ate the same way we did.
See, just the fact that you say cannabinoids in their vegetation, it just sounds so like biological, which it is, and unfortunately, it's been couched in such a way that it's only in the little dried leaves rolled up in the white paper.
Yeah, it's
But
been reduced
now,
to that. Yeah.
but now it's like the little, I'll just say the little white pills that your doctor gives you to take, because you have a headache, or to stop, what is it, like blood clots, right? Whatever those little tiny things are that your doctor gives you, at least now it is being presented in a more balanced format for people to say, oh, I can also take it like this, so I don't have to smell like that, or no one has to see me do this, but you're still ingesting it in a variety of forms.
Exactly.
Thank you so much to
You're welcome.
those people. Again, if you are interested in getting more information, of course, as Brother Ade said, YouTube can be your friend, Google can be your friend, but like use that sixth sense that you were born with, that you're spiritually endowed with, and just say, hey, like in this situation, if it don't look right, sound right, or smell right, maybe I should just step back. Maybe I should do some cross referencing. Anyway, thank you so much once again. Peace and blessings. This is a Learn to Grow You moment where I plant seeds to help you grow, and I am planting new seeds with this type of content. I do hope that you appreciate it. If you do, please drop me a comment. If you are on my YouTube page, please, of course, like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on Facebook as well, share it with someone else. And I look forward to the next episode on the Doriel Lario Show. So peace and blessings. I will see you next time.